Hebrews 10 verse 25. Not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more, as ye see the day approaching. As mentioned before, the reason why many churches fail outside, that pastors and church leaders can never be role models, it seems like an impossible task. Under their leadership, the congregation couldn't keep their faith. As a result, personnel changes occur almost every 10 years. Since its return to Hong Kong in 1985, Zion has been founded for nearly 40 years. I haven't seen a single church in the last few decades, like us, we can keep our faith. Even though I faced 100 times more persecution than they did, but there has never been a church like ours. On the contrary, the old lion and the big lion of Zion can always maintain, and even pass on the faith to the next generation of young lions. If the big lion doesn't give in a little, the little lion has no chance to serve. The reason is that the big lion is enough to accomplish everything. But the church out there is not like that. The older generation has all retired, the younger generation takes the lead. Even the Mother Church of Zion had the same situation. It's all in the hands of the younger generation. We don't know the management at all, many of whom have only been believers for a few years. What's the solution? Because the leaders have all left. It's the same in every church I know, including all churches in foreign countries. 10 years, maybe 20 at the most. For 20 years, most of them are priests, the others had been banished by the priest. The same is true in Hong Kong and abroad. The reason for what they call spiritual power is being able to show off at large gatherings, showing how many parties they lead, get the congregation emotional and excited. They boast, this is the power. Do you want this power? But a decade later, their problems began to emerge, such as child molestation, adultery, or homosexuality. There are many people, the same crowd of worshippers and pastors who boasted of their spiritual power. When they came into contact with God's presence, and they turned entirely in the other direction. It never occurred to them that for God's gift of life, they did not respond well and squandered it like a rich kid. And the reason, as I said, the first is probably the lack of discipleship and Zell group, even with discipleship and family clusters. After a few years, they ran out of ideas and needed more information to share. I've seen an example of what's called the most complete family information system. It's only in stock for 3 years and then repeats itself 3 years later. Just think, so the pastor himself has grown up? 3 years and 3 years, when they emptied their inventory of information, there was nothing left. So they didn't grow up, they didn't look for a channel to continue these 3 years. So whether it's family messages or discipleship, there is this problem. As Jackie Pullinger, founder of Hong Kong's Happiness Camp. She, too, by discipleship, 1 day a week, from morning till night, interview more than a dozen disciples one by one. Unfortunately, it is also not sustainable. What's the solution? The reason is that all pastors never prioritize spiritual growth, without putting in the slightest effort to sustain spiritual growth, no flexibility as their primary direction. About experiencing God, serving God, solving all the problems of faith, and to satisfy oneself with the spiritual growth and feeding, all this, they did not solve, therefore, they need help to solve the problem for others. Throughout their lives, they were cut off from God. Let it only be known that God has promulgated the message for the last 3 years, but it is all in the past, there will be no new revelation. Because they don't keep growing, therefore, the brothers and sisters of the general church may strive to grow during the first 2 years of faith. 10 years later, it has stagnated or even retreated. Then, they immediately adopted Hillsong's idea. Use emo as rejuvenation. They advocated igniting the revival of the past. The essence is to inflame emotions, so, they gather a lot of idiots to get emotional. He can't be emotional anymore. This is where most outside churches are headed. But for me, going to church was mostly about making a leap in my faith. As soon as my faith leaps forward, information sharing will continue. Moreover, my leap in faith comes from the law of sowing, therefore, my spiritual understanding and revelation are far better than before. I have more information than I can share. Just the opposite of them. I can conclude that based on their sharing volume, the message I received in a month, it was enough to support them from the founding of the church until the day it was discontinued. The reason, their information can only be shared for 3 years, it only takes me 1 month to prepare 3 years of information for them. They can only repeat the message over and over again. So, they taught people to rely on God to solve problems, let God help you, but apparently, they didn't rely on God themselves. His faith has never been helped by God. That is, they were cut off from God. The reason is not that God didn't help them, instead, God's help is limited to the first 10 years. It's the same as if you take something of value, exchanging with God for His power and grace. Only one exchange, however, they want to keep exchanging. Do you understand? Hebrews 10 verse 25. Not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more, as ye see the day approaching.
所有牧師從來都唔看屬靈嘅成長係首位，並且佢亦冇花任何心機咧，使到個屬靈成長可以持續落去，冇將佢變通成為自己首要嘅方向。
Blessed be the life He's given. Every breath I take is divine. I feel His grace around me. His love is my lifeline. I'm grateful for the journey, the path that I'm walking on. Every step I take, I know I'm not alone, I'm strong. With every beat of my heart, I'll praise His name. I'll dance in His love, my life will never be the same. His grace is my shelter, His love is my guide. I'm forever grateful, walking with Him side by side.
我翻到嚟最主要針對就係排第一就係我自己嘅信仰嘅躍進。As long as 我躍進嘅話，根本都一直都會有信息分享嘅。但我躍進，因為我係行撒種嘅律，所以我個速度係遠遠快過以前，即係我對屬靈嘅理解啟示快過以前。
Side by side.